Here I am with another story. So far, in my 19 years of life, this is my only other experience encounter. I'm sure there's been small things that happen that I never noticed, but per usual, but this gave me and still gives me the most body-wrenching chills to this day. This event takes place in my cousin's childhood home, about 7 years ago. My aunt and my youngest cousin still live there, but my cousin who witnessed this with me has since moved out. For the purpose of this story, I'll refer to my older cousin as E and my younger cousin as R. It was early morning in July. On this day, we were packing up to go on a trip to visit other family members in Oregon. This all takes place in the upstairs, so I will describe the layout. This was an older house, built sometime in the 60s. The upstairs is a very long and narrow hallway. On one end of the hall, there is a bathroom, and on the other end of the hall, there's a large bookcase. On the right side of this hall, there are 2 bedrooms, one by the bathroom and one by the bookcase. The bedroom by the bathroom was R's room, and the other one was a guest room. On the left side of the hall, across the guest bedroom, and next to the bookcase, there's a little door that we could never open. We could also never find the key. My aunt said that she had never seen the key. When we were younger, we liked to pretend to be ghost hunters. On this morning, we were pretending to be ghost hunters per usual. I had a weird interest with this door. I still don't understand why. However, I was very drawn to it. What's weird is on this day, there was a very old-looking key sitting on the bookshelf next to this door. I grabbed it, and I tried to see if it was the fit for the lock, and it was. My cousins were scared to open the door themselves. We all had uneasy feelings. However, me being the oldest, I decided I would be the ballsy one and open the door. When I did, nothing was in there. It was just a bunch of insulation, spiderwebs, and it had no light. Very disappointing. We put the key back, shut the door, and went downstairs to get a snack. When we went back up, the key was gone, and the door was locked again. Very weird. As kids, we didn't think much of it. Fast forward, it was about time to go on a trip. My mother and my aunt were outside in the van chatting, so they sent us inside to find R. E and I were walking around the house calling out for her, but we couldn't find her. Keep in mind, R was 10 years old at the time. E was 11 and I was 12. R was wearing rainbow leggings, orange Crocs, and a red t-shirt. R had very beautiful long brown hair that went down to her waist. Keep all of this in mind. E and I checked R's room. She was not in there. When we walked back out into the hallway, we both saw the exact same thing. We still talk about it today, and every time we talk about it, we both recall the same exact events. When we entered the hallway, we saw a young girl around our age, who was wearing a white dress with pink ruffles on the sleeves as well as the bottom. She had on white stockings and little white slip-ons with one strap across the top. All we could see was the back of her. Her hair was beautiful, long and brown, just like ours hair. She also had a pink ribbon bow tied in her hair, like a half-up style. We didn't think that someone else could be in the house. So when we got into the hallway, E asked R, "When did you change? And where did you get that dress?" Once she asked that, the being started walking down the hallway to the guest room. We followed her, thinking it was R acting weird. When we turned into the guest room, no one was there. We even opened the closet. Nothing. After that, we went out the back door, and there was R sitting in the treehouse in the very back corner of the yard, still in the same rainbow leggings and red shirt as earlier. She was extremely freaked out and tried telling our mothers what we saw, but they did not believe us. We have never seen it again, but my cousin would always tell me that she would hear weird things in the house that was unexplainable. What are your thoughts? Was this a ghost or something else? Do you think opening that door had anything to do with the weird experience? Additional information. This may not mean much, but I also lived in the house for a period of time with them while my mother was in an addiction center when I was around 11. While I lived there, I would often wake up in the middle of the night. I would sleepwalk, sometimes even down the stairs, and sometimes I would turn the water on. I also experienced horrible anxiety during my time there. I also had horrible night terrors, and so did both my cousins. Myself and my cousins were always creeped out to go upstairs by ourselves and would not go up without another person. At one point, E moved into the guest room upstairs so R wouldn't be up there alone, as there were always weird sounds like banging or knocking upstairs. Now that E is gone, R took the downstairs room. So, this story is from a while back, and I'm still confused as to what had happened those couple nights. Let me set the scene. When I was younger, my parents would send me up to Russia to visit family. I would after that spend the whole summer at the family dasha. This was deep into the woods, quite a bit away from the nearest city, but the dasha itself was in what it described as a small village of around 16 or so streets, 2 major roads between the sections. The major roads weren't paved or anything. They were just the biggest. So this is where most people drive their cars. Then after the 2 major roads was miles and miles of deep Russian woods. Our dasha was technically 1 floor, but you could go up into the attic, which had 2 small rooms. This would be where I slept. One of the years when FIFA was playing, I remember this vividly, because the first night I was lying in the attic listening to my extended family shout and laugh over the gameplay. Finally, after what felt like forever, the game ended, and everyone went off to bed. However, in my infinite wisdom, decided to stay up. What was I doing? Who knows, but I was awake. That night was a hot night, unusually hot, so I had both windows open to allow breeze to go throughout the 2 rooms. At some point, I had realized that I needed to use the bathroom. This was an issue, seeing as the bathroom was outside, on the whole other side of the property. As I was about to get up, I had a wave of nausea hit me. Lying back down, I then noticed an odd noise. Hooves. They were distant at first, but then grew louder. While I could have easily written off the noise, none of the elk, deer, or even moose would go anywhere near the settlement. As the noise came closer, I couldn't sate my curiosity and slowly inched up my bed. As I was about to move the curtain, I had a sense of dread come over me. I was terrified. Of what? I had no clue. As I pondered, I realized the sound of hooves was right under my window. They paced in a circle underneath and wouldn't leave. There was no curiosity left within me, just confusion, and that continued into terror. I inched my way back down the bed and lay underneath the thick covers as I tried to fall asleep. I stayed that way till the first sign of light, at which point the sound disappeared. I remember not if they walked away or if the sound just dissipated. Either way, it was really odd. By the time everyone was up, I thought nothing of it and just felt a strange occurrence. Then came night. Once everyone was asleep, and the sound returned, and with it, the terror. By morning, it was gone, and being the young teen that I was at the time, I ignored it still. The next night, it came again, under my window. It paced as I lay in bed, shivering under the covers, listening to whatever it was walk in circles. By morning, it was gone. 3 nights was enough for young me, and after that, instead of telling anyone, I decided to just go to sleep. After that night, I didn't hear anything, but I can tell you, if it didn't come back, or I just didn't wake up to it. Either way, I have no idea what was, and if anyone thinks they do, I would love to hear it. First, I want to say that I came from a Muslim family, and culture and I believe that we weren't alone in this world, and that there's other entities, such as jinns, around us, to which they sometimes may do some paranormal stuff that can't be rationalized. So with that being said, one time I was about to sleep around 2 a.m., and as I'm doing so, I see the kitchen lights suddenly get turned on. At first I thought it was my mom at the kitchen for whatever reason, and then shortly after I hear plates making noises, as if someone is just fiddling with the plates. At the time, I used to sleep at my parents' bedroom, where my mom sleeps at due to my room being under construction. My dad at the time wasn't in the house since he was somewhere else for work, so it was pretty much me sleeping in an inflatable bed on the ground and my mom sleeping on the bed. So as the noises and the light being turned on around 3 to 5 minutes, then all of a sudden it turned off and it complete darkness and silence. So for a bit I kept staring at the door, thinking that my mom would come back, and after 1 minute I grabbed my phone and put on the flashlight and found my mom still asleep, like as if she never had left the room. I woke her up and told her what happened, and she was very weirded out about the situation. I pretty much didn't want to go check and just recited a prayer for protection from such spirit jinns and went back to sleep, mainly because I knew it couldn't be a burglar in the house, and no burglar would be stupid enough to go to the kitchen and turn on the lights and make some noticeably loud noises with the plates. Thus, I figured it had to be some sort of ghost paranormal activity. I was always skeptical about such entities, though that turn of event made me believe that there's spirits in this world. We have shortly moved from that house for other unrelated reasons, and now I from time to time do think about the whole situation of it being some sort of spirit in the house, as it cannot really be explained. This just happened today, and I'm freaking out. So, my grandparents' house is haunted. Pretty much my cousins and I believe it. We've had many experiences where we heard whistling, seen figures, heard noises, had dreams of people we don't know, or heard mimicking voices. Now, I've never experienced anything till today. So for starters, my uncle, aunt, and cousin went away on a trip recently. My other aunt and other cousins were out as well. My grandmother was downstairs with her headphones on, and she has a hearing problem, so she can't hear us the first time often. My grandfather was also upstairs sleeping, so we often come visit every day at the same time, because my sister is autistic. So I rang the Ring doorbell because the lock wasn't working, because sometimes it glitches, and fixed itself later because of the exposure to the sun. So I unlock the door, and I hear my aunt's voice say, "Welcome." So I said the greeting back, but when it clicked for me, my aunt's not there. So I said, "Wait, who said Alakam?" My mom also got freaked out, and because the greeting was coming from inside the house in my aunt's room, it was her voice. So I rushed around to see. I called my mother. I called my other aunt and asked if she was here and told her what happened. She told me to ask if my aunt away did it through the Ring app. Now keep in mind the Ring is very new and they never really used it before. So when I called her, she had no idea she could even do that. So then I started freaking out even more. couldn't even say the prayer because I couldn't remember it. My aunt called me back and said she got it on the recording. I am not allowed to show it, though, because of privacy, and I don't have permission from them. But it's on camera. For the rest of the time, I felt the basement was colder than normal. I felt too anxious to even go upstairs. I don't know who mimicked my aunt's voice. For a djinn to say "Alaikum" like that, I'm hoping it was a good djinn. Edit. I finally saw the video. It is on there, but my father doesn't believe me. He thinks it's my mom saying it twice, but it's not. I am new on Reddit, but I figured I'd share some of my experiences. Has had anything similar happen to them? I'm a 35-year-old male and currently live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'll try to make this brief and go over a few of my experiences. The first time I can remember anything like this happening to me, I was probably around 15 years old. My family was in the process of moving into a new apartment. Not much was left in our old place besides the essentials, my bed and television. I had decided to stay the night by myself so I could watch the basketball game. Everything that night seemed the same, as it always had. I remember watching the game and opening one of those family-sized Dorito bags. I set the bag down after I ate a few chips, and a few moments later the bag flew halfway across my room. I picked the bag up and went back to watching the game. I didn't think much of it that night. Maybe I didn't want to think about it at all. At our new apartment, the only thing strange I remember seeing would be out of the corner of my eyes. My dad had a big bright fish tank. I would routinely see the light being completely blocked by something walking in front of it. It would happen while I was in the kitchen doing dishes, and also while I was in my bedroom playing Xbox. One other thing happened to me that I can't explain. I got real lightheaded one time. My dad laid me on the couch in the living room. All I could see was white. I heard, "We're all around you." It scared the living crap out of me, and I just remember thinking, I'm too young to die. Fast forward about 6 years. I just met my future wife, and after a few months of dating, I had decided to move in with her. We were laying in bed one afternoon just hanging out. I heard a deep male voice directly in my ear tell me to get out. I looked at her trying to process what I just experienced. "Did you just hear that?" I asked. "I heard something, but it wasn't loud enough to make out," she told me. We were less than a foot apart, and it was as if someone was yelling directly into my ear. She couldn't hear what it had said. A few months later, she was driving me to work around 2 a.m. What she told me sent chills down my spine. She told me she had woken up earlier in the night and something was talking to her. She couldn't understand what it was saying. It was a language she wasn't familiar with. The thought of something I couldn't see that close to where I was sleeping was very unsettling. About a year later, we had moved into a new home. I woke up one night to a shadow figure standing above me. I reached out to grab what I perceived as an intruder, and it took a step back and disappeared. I never went back to sleep that night. On another occasion, I was alone in the house on my tablet one evening. I was laying in bed with my bedroom door open. I heard footsteps in the hall coming down my bedroom. There were two problems with that. First being I didn't believe anyone else was in the house, and the second was I should have heard the footsteps long before I did. They started halfway down my hallway. I watched the door, and a few moments later a tall shadow figure passed by it. I got up again thinking there was someone in the house that shouldn't be. Both rooms outside my room had their doors closed, and there was nowhere else to go. I opened the bathroom door and it was empty. Opened the door to my spare bedroom and it was also empty. Now, 6 years later, and I find myself in a new house with a new experience. It was late one night, probably around 11 p.m. My wife was asleep in our bedroom and was sitting on a bed in our spare bedroom with the door opened. From where I was sitting, I could see down our hallway. It was dark, but not pitch black. As I sat there scrolling on my phone, something out of the corner of my eye caught my attention. I looked into the hallway and it was empty. I went back to whatever I was doing on my phone. A few moments later, I find myself seeing the same thing. I look and there's nothing there. So now I'm back to my phone, but this time, I'm trying to focus out of the corner of my eye and figure out what is going on. I see something crawling in my hallway. It was about 10 feet away from where I was sitting. I look, but nothing. I go back to my phone, still trying to view it from my peripheral. Now I see it stand up. It's a woman wearing a white dress. It's walking in a circle, and I'm trying to process what's happening. It sprints at my door, and just as it gets there, I hit the bedroom light, and it's gone. Now I'm sitting here, wondering if I just imagined it. The hair on the back of my neck is standing up, and my heart is beating out of my chest. A few months back, I was home alone. My family was at the grocery store, and I was left alone. Me and my cat were in my room when suddenly my fan stopped working. The power went out, and my cat absolutely freaked out. He stared at the fan and started trembling, and his hair stood up. I picked him up because he was literally shaking in fear, and I was trying to calm him down. He was clinging onto me for dear life, digging his nails into my skin. I took him downstairs to get out of the room because something in there was scaring him. The whole power in the house went out, and I was with my cat downstairs, and he crawled under a couch chair and just hid there. He came back out after a while and just cuddled with me and eventually went back into my room. But I'm still curious as to why he acted like that. What was he so afraid of? Okay, so about 21-ish years ago, my mother was able to buy her first house and got it for a really good price. I remember being very excited to have my own bedroom, and every day after school, my mother would bring me to our new house while her and my grandfather cleaned out the place. And because I was there, I was able to pick my own room. The room I had chosen had an old Cheerio cabinet with an old creepy doll, an old music box, and a few other broken tools. I asked my mom if I could keep the music box and started to play it while my mother cleaned. Eventually, my grandmother found an old beaten-up journal, and my mother and her started to read it. I'll never forget the 2 entries. Entry 1. Why did she makes me do this? She knows how I get. Why couldn't she have just kept her mouth shut? Entry 2. I miss her every day. I don't think I can go on without her anymore. I only heard these because I had eavesdropped on my mother and grandmother. They decided to get rid of the journal because of how creepy it was. But we eventually moved in, and that was when the weirdness started to happen. My family were convinced the house might be haunted, but nothing directly was happening until they did. Encounter 1. I was watching TV, pilot episode of Ned's Disclassified School Survival Guide, when something strange started to happen on my TV volume. Went super high, and my remote stopped working. My brother and stepdad ran in, and the channel started to change as the volume got louder. My stepdad said something about it being a deaf ghost when the volume went to mute, followed by the power going out. My stepdad looked at the breaker box and couldn't find anything wrong with it. Encounter 2. My brother and his friends were playing on the computer and started to hear strange noises. They went to investigate and heard the sound of a train. We lived very far away from the train stations, like there was no possible way we could have heard them. But then they say they saw a red-haired girl standing in the living room. When they turned back, she was gone. Encounter 3. I was sitting in the dining room alone. My brother was in his room getting ready for our grandmother to pick us up and take us to her pool club. When I started eating, I felt something odd, and my chair legs broke, so I slammed to the ground. I saw a black, shadowy figure. My brother and my dog ran towards me, and he got freaked out. Again, my stepdad looked over to see what was wrong, and it said it looked like the legs were kicked in. Bad things started to occur. I got extremely sick and nearly died. But after leaving the house, the bad energy followed. We had Miss Unfortunate in every house we moved into after that. House 1, black mold. House 2, landlord forgot his promise our house to his in-laws. House 3, electrical issues nearly burned down the place. My brother had realized one of our blankets was in his closet when he had first moved into the Bayport house. He begged my parents to get rid of it. So one night when we were at a camping trip, my mother dropped the blanket in the fire, and everything seemed to get better, a little bit slowly. But here's the crazy thing. The music box was stolen by my cousin when I was 10, still living in the house at the time. And well, nothing but bad things started happening to him that eventually led to his death. But there's a few strange notes about the house. 1. There was a stain on the maroon kitchen walls. It wasn't until I was older did I realize that kind of stain only shows up if you paint over blood. 2. The previous owner of the house reported his girlfriend as missing, not dead. Claimed she had ran away after a fight. 3. The realtor who sold my mother the house said the girl died in a car accident, but there was a large blood stain on our dining room wall. 4. There was a crawl space we never could access. We were never given the key. But if you went into the basement area where the crawl space would logically lead to, there was a door that was sealed away with black electrical tape, with pipes built over it. My stepfather and his own father looked it over once and realized the pipes didn't connect to anything. One last weird note. When I was playing while my mother and grandmother were cleaning the house before we moved in, I saw something very strange. A shirtless child chasing a dog. Now, at the same time, we didn't have a dog. But a year later, we got my first dog, and he had stolen my shirt while I was getting dressed. I chased her and realized as I did, and I seen the exact same thing a year earlier, so that's my ghostly experience.
got my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross